my beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and it's time for part 2 in my Zodiac sign inspired BYOP series. If you haven't seen the first video, I definitely recommend you check that one out. I did already share my fire sign palette. I'll link that one in the description down below. Basically, the premise of this series is that I'm using the different Zodiac signs to inspire color combinations for ColourPop Build Your Own palettes. Astrology has been a huge trend in the beauty world for the past few years. I never knew too much about the different zodiac signs. I know there's a whole birth chart and rising signs and all that. I'm really taking these sort of at face value and just looking at the sun signs, the different characteristics, colors, elements associated with them, and then I use that information to inspire a little 12-pan palette. ColourPop is coming off of a big BYOP sale, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of the shades sold out. That happens a lot. At the time that I designed this palette, all of these shades were in stock, so I'm very sorry if they're not now. That was one of the parameters of my palette. I chose only current shades. I did do half matte and half shimmer, so 6 mattes and 6 shimmers in every single palette. I personally really like that kind of balance in a palette, so that's what I did for all 4 of my elemental palettes. And then within each palette, one row is inspired by one sign. Since this is the water palette, then these are the 3 water signs: Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. I'm gonna go through each row and sort of tell you how my research about that sign inspired the color choices. I'll show you swatches of all the shades. I'll also show you 3 different tutorials at the end of the video using these shades and also doing looks that are inspired by each sign. Let's start at the top of the palette here. This is my Pisces row. The Pisces is said to be sensitive, sympathetic, artistic, and wise. Pisces is associated with a lot of sea green colors, and I did stay very true to that. I also went for shimmers and duochromes to be sort of like a fish scale type of look. I did want to do some extremes in depth here because Pisces is described as a very deep and artistic type of sign. I wanted to do a very light and a very dark shade so that you could really mix those shades and really customize your color. I feel like that's a perfect thing for a Pisces. So that's why I have this matte bone shade. This can be mixed with any of the colors to really change them and brighten them, lighten them. The shades in my Pisces row are Hear Me Out, Bashful, Sideline, which is a cool duochrome, and Conjure Up. Let's take a look at all the Pisces shades swatched together now. The middle row is designed for the zodiac sign of Cancer. Cancers are also described as sensitive, but they're also intuitive, emotional, and intelligent. So I really wanted to go for a softer color scheme here. I also wanted to put a duochrome in the Cancer inspired shades because they are very sensitive and emotional signs. I wanted to give that shifting feeling, that looking at things from different angles and ever-changing kind of feeling. So one of my favorite shades and one of my favorite duochromes of all time is in this row. This really worked out perfectly because the colors for Cancer are violet, gray, and silver. So I feel like with that color scheme, with their planetary body being the moon, I could really get this soft, gentle, kind of ever-changing look. I'm really surprised by how much I loved working with this row of shadows because I'm not typically a very cool tone girl. I'm not a silver and blue kind of girl, but I actually love the way that these shadows came together. The shadows in the Cancer row are Beam Me Up, Chic Happens, Glass Bowl, that is one of my all-time favorites, and Silver Lining. And let's see all those shades swatched together now. The very bottom row here is for my Scorpios. Now, the Scorpio, while it is a water sign, it's often associated with red colors. So red, maroon, burgundy. I really went more in that maroon and burgundy kind of direction because first of all, I wanted to differentiate the Scorpio look from the Aries look, and the Aries is also a very red associated sign. I wanted to stick with this water element theme, so I wanted to go a little bit softer, and I do think that maroon comes off softer than red on the eye particularly. So imagine viewing red through water. It's going to look a little deeper. It's not going to be quite so bright and vibrant, but more of kind of an earthy red. It's still true to the red, burgundy type of shades that their sign is associated with, but it's also true to that water element part of their sign. Scorpios are described as intense and driven, but also very passionate and very independent. So I knew I wanted to go a little bit more bold with these shades. So I did stick with that intensity of a Scorpio sign, but I also gave it a softer edge so that it would fit in with the other water signs as well. For the Scorpio row, we have Labyrinth, Snake Eyes, Going Steady, and Pinky Promise. I chose Labyrinth and Snake Eyes because they have like a pinky tint to them, so they play really well with these burgundy tones. They also soften the look and add a little bit of that watery element. I sort of thought of this Labyrinth shade as like a watered down version of Going Steady, if that makes sense. Lastly, let's take a look at the Scorpio row swatches. Here is the palette in its entirety with all the shades, so if you want to make a record of these, now's the time to pause and write them down or take a screenshot. Now that you've seen all the shades I chose for my water palette and heard a little bit about the inspiration behind why I chose the shades I chose, I'm going to show you some tutorials so you can see all these shades in action. I wanted each row to stand on its own, but I also want the palette as a whole to be cohesive. So for each look, I will use all 4 shades from that sign's row, but I might pull other shades as I see fit. I also want to kind of throw this out there. I'm not a makeup artist. I'm not here to bring innovative looks and perfect technique. This really truly is makeup just for fun for me. I'm just playing with these shades. I do these looks so that you can see some different color combinations, and I truly like creating looks that I feel like anybody can do. That's something that's always been important to me on my channel, is that the looks that I do are not only things that are really accessible and really beginner friendly, but they're also things that I'm really comfortable with and that I actually like to wear. That is why I don't do like crazy eyeliner and really graphic looks and false lashes. I don't really like to wear that. I don't find it comfortable and it doesn't fit my style. See what I'm saying? You're picking up what I'm putting down, I know you are. So this is not an artistry channel. This is really just supposed to be fun and playing with makeup. So if you don't find these techniques to be innovative, and if you don't think that my color choices are good or my blending is good, or if you generally just hate the way that I do my makeup, totally fine. Feel free not to comment, because it's all about just playing, experimenting, and having fun. So with that being said, let's jump into the tutorials and then I'll just wrap up all my thoughts at the end. I always start off with my favorite eye base. I'm priming with my MAC Paint Pot in the shade Painterly. And then I'm just going to use that nice white bone kind of matte shade to set my eye base so that I have a nice smooth surface to work on. Then for my transition shade, I'm going to be pulling in from the Scorpio row this shade called Labyrinth. This is a beautiful, warm, kind of pinky mauve shade, and it really helps to warm up this look a little bit. So I'm using that built up all along my crease area. Then I'm going to start going in with my greens. First is the dark green matte called Conjure Up, and using a small flat brush, I'm building that up along the lash line and then starting to form a sort of triangular shape along the outside of my eye. So this sort of acts the same way a cat eyeliner would, giving that flick type of illusion. And I'm also using that just a little bit along the outer part of my lower lashes. Then I took the shade Bashful and using my pinky finger, I applied that to the very inner corner of my eye. That's going to be my highlight. Then I used Sideline and using my finger, I applied that all over the lid from that shiny inner corner all the way out, covering that dark green matte. This gives that very translucent, reflective type of look. I decided to really highlight my brow bone, so I first went in with that creamy matte shade called Hear Me Out and swept that all along under my brow. Then I used Bashful, and with a smaller brush, this one's a little more dense, I put that right under the arch of my brow and then sort of blended it with my finger. Then I curled my lashes and added my L'Oreal Lash Paradise mascara. And that's my finished Pisces look. I really like the way this turned out. These greens work very nicely with that pinky mauve shade. And this really just gives me mermaid, like chillin' under the sea type of vibes, which is exactly what I wanted for my Pisces look. Now it's time for my Cancer inspired look. Of course, I'm prepping my eyes in the exact same way, priming with the paint pot and then setting with that shade Hear Me Out. I'm going to be doing this every single time. In fact, I do it in every single video. Next, I'm going to be going in with the shade Chic Happens. This is like a purpley gray shade, and this is a gorgeous cool toned transition shade. I know sometimes those are hard to come by, and this one is just right. It is quite neutral leaning, but it's definitely cool toned, so it's very easy to work with. I applied that in the crease and also all along my lower lash line, just using a small flat brush for that. Next, I used the other matte shade. This is a beautiful cool toned purple called Silver Lining, and with a small dense flat brush, I packed that shade all over my entire eyelid, just starting on the outer part of the lid and working my way inwards. This is a very easy purple to work with, so this step was not too difficult. Then I used Beam Me Up. This is a pale silvery blue with a detail brush, just pop that right on the inner corners. Now for my favorite part, I'm taking the shade Glass Bull. This is one of my all-time favorite eyeshadows, and with my finger, I am just patting that all over the lid so that you can see that purple peeking through. Then I curled my lashes and added some L'Oreal Lash Paradise mascara. That's my finished look for the Cancer sign. This is my favorite eyeshadow look that I did for this video. I'm usually not a cool tone girl, but I just love how deceptively simple this is. It's really easy to achieve, but this look has so much depth. It looks different in different lighting. Really, really enjoyed this one. Last up for the water signs, we're doing the Scorpio look, of course. Same prep here, priming with the paint pot and then setting that base with that shade Hear Me Out so that our shadows go on really smoothly. This is especially important because we're working with some reds. For the next step, I'm using this matte shade called Labyrinth in the crease, and I'm not being too precise with this transition shade because I do want this to be a very intense and almost haphazard type of look. Next, I'm going in with Going Steady. This is a deeper matte maroon burgundy type of shade. Building that up with a small fluffy detail brush all along the outer part of my eye and just a little bit up into the outer crease as well so that we get some good depth. I want this to be really intense while not being smoky, just more of an intense, colorful impact on the eye. I also applied a little bit of Going Steady along the lower lash line, and then I went back with a pencil brush in the shade Labyrinth to blend that shade out and give that sort of intense, smoky-ish, haphazard look. Next, I used Pinky Promise and using my pointer finger to apply that all over my lid so that I get some nice shine. Then to maintain a little bit of extra depth and drama on the outer part of the eye, I just went back in with a little bit more Going Steady and intensified that on the outer corners. Then I used Snake Eyes, and just using my finger, I applied that to the very inner corners of my eyes for a nice little highlight there. Curled my lashes and added my L'Oreal Lash Paradise mascara. That's my finished Scorpio look. I love that this is both intense and also has a softness to it. I think this really is perfect for a Scorpio who is known for being very driven, very competitive, but also has that property of a water sign. I have to say, I think that this water palette is probably my favorite one of all 4 of the elemental palettes that I designed. If I was just given like a snapshot of all 4 palettes that I designed a couple months back before I even had this idea, I never would have picked this one as my favorite, but something about it is just so perfectly balanced. It has a very neutral feel, but it is mostly colors. There's only what, like 4 neutrals in this palette. It just has a softness and a shininess to it that I really, really love. Who knew the most cool toned palette that I designed would be my favorite? I'm as surprised as you are. Make sure you go check out the fire sign video. Not sure which one's gonna be next. Leave a comment and let me know if you want to see the air palette or the earth palette next. The air palette is definitely brighter. The earth palette is earthier, but do not fret, my earth signs. I did not stick you with a whole brown palette. There's plenty of color in there. I think I only put like 4 total browns and greens. So I'm definitely going to be bringing my earth sign friends some color, but just doing it in an earthy way. I want to know what you think about this palette. Which look was your favorite? Are you into zodiac signs? Do you follow astrology? I always love to hear what you guys think about things too. So please leave a comment, let us know. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Astrology has been a huge and awesome. Anyway, other water shades, Worcestershire. What has happened? 3 different tutorials. And also, if you don't like my eyebrows, then, you know, feel free not to comment that and just do your eyebrows however you like yours to look. Got it? That sign, ma'am, what happened? Why? Never mind. That's a different video. Not killing it today. Really not killing it. I look like a funky mermaid and I'm here for it. I feel like this green looks super bright close up, but from far away it doesn't look that bright. I hope everybody likes this one because it's my favorite. What was that word even gonna be? I know this brow bone highlight looks really subtle on camera, but it's throwing me off because it's not something I usually do. But when it comes to these kind of tutorials, I like to experiment a little bit. Color poppin'. That was supposed to be a fish. Okay. Okay, well, that's a sign that it's time to go. Also, my camera battery's dying. Okay, talk to you soon, bye.